Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Retrek. I'm Captain Jim. With me, of course, Sir Admiral Elliot.
Hi there.
And Dr. Squee.
Dragon Wesley.
Yeah, Wesley. So we decided after covering Prodigy that we'd go back and have a look at two of the Traveller episodes. We know the Traveller's in TNG 3 times, but today we're looking at where no one has gone before, and Journey's End. So we're doing the first and the last Traveller episode. We know that he popped up in Remember Me, but that was more of a Beverly episode.
Yeah.
I prefer, like you say, it's more of a Beverly episode, whereas we're doing the Traveller Wesley intersection.
Yeah, exactly.
And the middle one works more on its own. I think these are dynamite back to back.
These are really good.
You've got two Traveller, two Wesley centrics, and you get to do the whole thing of where they were at the beginning of Wesley's journey, and that counts the whole through, and where they are at the end of it, which are the first series and last series. So there's a lot of bang for your buck by pairing these together.
And that's it. More broadly as well, we get to see TNG about the fourth or fifth episode, I think it was, and the anti-penultimate episode. So no, the anti-penultimate episode, or the anti-penultimate if you count all good things. Basically, we've got one really near the beginning and one really near the end.
And you can tell it's near the beginning because they really always want to use that where no man has come before, or when no one in this case. No man in the original series. It's low-hanging fruit. You've got to do it, though.
It's no secret that TNG Season 1 had some issues, and though I think this is one of the better early ones, but anyway,
I remember, when I bought the videos originally from Season 1, this was one of the ones that I watched more than a lot of the others. I think a lot of it was to do with it had more effects in it. You got more of the ship.
And to give you your propers, Elliot, you shared a video with us, which I don't know if you shared in the group, but you totally should, about there was a scientist who was breaking down this episode, and
it was really bizarre because was it Saturday morning we decided what episodes we were going to cover this week and next week.
Yeah.
And I'm just flicking through YouTube, and it just came up on my YouTube feed, and it's the scientist talking about this episode, and she's a real astrophysicist. She's actually really good.
Yeah.
But it's just really bizarre coincidence that it slots onto your feed straight away. Watch this next.
Exactly. And as well, you're saying about the video, it was this one and The Last Battlefield as well. So you got the first Ferengi episode. This was a good VHS was these two.
Yeah.
Particularly in Season 1, you didn't have any of your home soils or your Angel Ones or any of that rubbish.
And also, a general point I'd like to bring in is I watching these two back to back. The one thought I had quite a bit was, I think it's almost like you needed some of the, with the younger Wesley, I thought he could have done with, because he was meant to be a child genius, he could have done with a little bit more of that, arrogance, maybe even, as a kid who's really clever. That tends to be quite a common trait. Whereas the later Wesley, when they brought him back and made him a bit of an arrogant prick, I think he should have been more cerebral, because he's about to go on this journey, because it was about expanding his mind. I think they could have done almost copying the Wesleys.
I've got ideas why he was like that in the last episode.
Cool.
Well, we'll get there. So let's look at the first one then, where no one has gone before. And this starts off with, basically, I won't read the captain's log entry verbatim, but it's along the lines of, somebody's coming to piss about with his engines and we're not best happy about it.
Yeah, and just compare the difference in the captain's logs. I won't get into the next one, but this one is very kind of about the business. When Picard like, does he really? He doesn't react very much with Wesley in this episode, but if he
No,
does,
no,
it's
not a lot.
very curt. He talks about him like he's, even when he's doing the nice thing at the end, it's almost like he's a bit of just the scenery. Really, I don't know. Like it's really lovely to see those kind of differences with Picard.
Yeah,
as well,
this is where
his
they were.
journey and Crusher's are so interlinked. And
They were they were very much leaning into the Picard hates children at this point.
Well, these two episodes, how far apart they are, it actually gives an idea of Picard's journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It not being, when he first started, he was very by the book and the captain and very standoffish for everyone. He knew his officers, but he didn't associate with his officers.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of it, he's got that way. Yeah, he's got to know these people. These are his friends. These are people he does things without.
And really, since the end of TNG, we found out so much about this mirroring Patrick Stewart's journey himself, and he brought a lot of that to the role, because that was and it's really nice.
His relationship with Beverly as well. I mean, I know they never went all out with the romantic side, but they did
until Picard.
But they did have them like having dinners and things like that, and we'll touch on it. But the way they relate to each other in Journey's End is very different. So so we've got this Kaczynski guy, and he's coming to have a look at the warp engines, and they've read his papers, and they're like, "Oh, it's just a load of rubbish. What's he doing?"
Well, and what they say makes sense, because they're going, the Enterprise, and it is a brand new ship, and they're going, it's not going to do anything for us. He's been working on old ships, and yet if you do some tweaks to an old engine, you can get some more power out of it and improve it.
Yeah, it was nicely done that the expedition, like, the reason why they kind of scoffed at it without thinking of something sus really works, because, like you say, you would.
Yeah, it's like, we can see that, like, he's doing some tweaks, he's improving the flow, but this is a brand new engine. It isn't clogged up with rubbish and residue yet. It's peak.
But also the big thing is that his numbers don't add up. Like, the things that he's saying he's going to do don't make sense. And I find this quite funny, that they go, right, Councillor Troy, you go down and you see if you can get a reading on him. And then at the end of this scene, she goes, oh, well, he's very sure of himself and he's very arrogant. It's like, you can tell that from what he says. You don't need an empath. I can tell that
by watching it before she said anything.
Exactly.
Well, and you're 3 or 4 episodes in, and she's still explaining her power. She goes, well, usually when I meet someone, as you might remember at home, I can sense this, I can do this, but I can't do that. I can't get like all their thoughts and everything. But it's like
I can
like
get...
they were still doing the primer on her every time she.
Yeah, but she doesn't actually do any of that. No, she just tells us things that you get, like this. This guy walks in going, oh, look at this shithole of a spaceship. Yeah. My engines are fucking awesome. What I'm going to do, it's going to change your lives, lads.
I am the fucking dog's bollocks. And she goes,
and then Kaz, he's a bit up himself.
Yeah, and then we get Troy goes, oh, I think he might be a bit arrogant, like this guy.
Yeah.
Speaking
like, wow, your powers are amazing. How did you get that?
I'm glad we've got you on case, Councillor, because otherwise we'd have never have got that.
Also, speaking of arrogant, we did give a little scene with Argyle, who had a couple of lines, and this was just before he totally got pissy with the producers and said, it's like, you're not giving me enough to do. They go, cool, we won't give you anything to do then. Geordie, you're promoted.
Yeah, I mean, this was Gene Roddenberry's weird idea that he had. That he said, oh, well, a ship that big would have multiple chief engineers, so we won't have one chief engineer. We'll have like a rotating cast of chief engineers, which is why you get a lot of different ones in season 1. And then they got to season 2 and went, that were a silly idea. Let's just make Geordie the chief engineer.
Yeah, but it also keeps your production costs down, because you're paying for an extra every week instead of paying for a main cast member that you've got to pay residuals and royalties for infinitum.
I mean, Argyle had
True.
certainly got up to reoccurring, which is probably why in his head, because I didn't know that. Like, I knew that we'd seen loads of different people in engineering,
Yeah.
but I didn't realize they were all meant to be.
Yeah, it
engineers,
was.
so that's interesting. But I think he was the one who reoccurred the most. So in his head, he was chief engineer.
Where
So,
Argyle actually
he
says
wrote-
it in this. Actually, says it in this episode. He goes, "I'm one of the chief engineers."
Yeah,
I mean,
but then later in the episode, they do say our chief engineer, so it is used a bit in it. I don't think they'd fully decided.
Yeah.
But either way, yeah, Argyle don't get a lot to do and don't get much to do after this. So there we go. So yeah, they try out Kaczynski. They keep calling it Kaczynski's method, which like could either sound a bit rude or if you want your mind to go there, feel free.
Well, that's another.
Oh, you got pregnant. Well, I know people say that it's not true, but we use the Krasinski method, and it worked.
The
for us.
Krasinski method, yeah, exactly.
This is another example of how you can tell he's arrogant, that he's named it after himself, and you don't need to be empathic to tell.
Yeah, and it's like, right, Kaczynski, so he's just sitting there typing in a load of cobblers on the thing, and then it's like, is that fella doing all that one who sat back there? No, don't worry about him. He's not doing anything. He's fine. And only Wesley actually notices that he phases in and out of existence while Kaczynski's going do 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 do.
It is kind of nice the way they introduced that Wesley kind of just instinctively understands what he's doing, though, and kind of like gives him an idea for his program. That was really
that is
well done moment.
That is good, and it like there were a lot of complaints about Wesley early in the run where people were saying, "Oh, he's too intelligent and he knows better than all the adults and everything." But this is done in a way where it doesn't come across as obnoxious. Like, it comes across as Wesley's intrigued by what the Traveler's doing. And he's like, oh, what about if we try this? And the Traveler like sees something in him as he's doing that. And this works for me. I don't find Wesley obnoxious in this bit.
I never really found him obnoxious. Sometimes he was a bit annoying, but like obnoxious. I think if anything, he was when he came into scenes, it was like almost like a childish enthusiasm. Like, I loved that part of him. I thought that was great. If anything, I think make him a little bit more obnoxious and less annoying kid. Like, maybe almost like, the kid who doesn't know how to be a kid would have been more interesting, I think.
Yeah, it never came across to me as obnoxious, but it was very annoying, and it was very jarring how you're on the flagship of the Federation, and he's better than everyone. He comes up with the answer too often.
I think
I don't mind him being a child genius project, because like even in this episode they say you're meant for like greater things. I kind of like the idea, like maybe even like an autism story. Like, I don't think you're ever going to get that this time, but it's like. But you could also do it psychologically. Like, he lost his dad. He's separated away from other kids. He spent all his time learning books, and it's almost like he's got to learn how to be a kid. That would have been so much more interesting.
It would.
I think Will Wheaton would have played it blinder. He's a great actor. Like, I think we all kind of want to make it clear. We're not saying about him. It's just the way the character was written sometimes. Yeah, it's just such a shame because he deserved better, I think.
I think he did. And I think also we're seeing a bit of a... where the difference in our ages comes out. So Elliot's 10 years older than me, Squee's a couple of years older than me. But so when me and Squee were watching it, we probably identified with Wesley a lot more than you did, Elliot.
Yeah,
and so we probably have a bit of a softer spot for him in these episodes.
In 87, when this came out, you'd have been 6 or 7. I was 16, 17.
Exactly.
I
so
was going to pubs. It was illegal.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone.
So I think
that was illegal. So were we. We were like 7 at the time. 7 and 2, whatever it was.
I think there's maybe a bit of that playing into how we related to Wesley.
When we were that age, like, this is the 80s, so like it wouldn't like it wouldn't be as ridiculous as now that 7-year-olds like, oh, go on, just give him a sip of it, like that. Or shandies, which were literally 50-50. I remember when I would go and like either it was a family pub or a pub where like we went to see shows in our local theatre, and mum and dad would go into the pub, but kids weren't allowed so I'd have to sit outside, and they give me a packet of crisps and a drink. And if I wanted a shandy, it would be like half beer, half lemonade, and
but
that was not
okay,
uncommon.
No, that was perfectly normal.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being allowed in the tap room at the Labour Club, but yeah, the women and children had to go in the tap room. You know what I mean? And then I
remember family holidays, and it didn't matter what the weather was. You had to, if you were a kid, you had to sit outside the pub. You weren't allowed in.
Yeah.
Full stop.
How times have changed. But anyway, Kaczynski's the first one in this episode, and he won't be the last to just refer to Wesley as boy, which I quite enjoy how many people just call him boy. Oh, come on, the boy.
Yeah, and I think over these 2 episodes, that's the worst, like inappropriate wording to use with anyone. I don't think we're going to hear worse from that in the next episode.
I'm sure
I don't think there's anything culturally inappropriate that we're going to hear.
No, not at all. And you know, in fact, that informs what we're doing next week. So we'll talk about that.
Segue this
exactly. We thought it through.
And let's be fair, we did give people the opportunity to say if they wanted us to cover anything, and didn't. So it's our choice.
We've chosen. So yeah, they try it again. It all goes a bit wrong, and they end up traveling past warp 10, but no one turns into a salamander.
No.
Because the Traveler's program is much better.
Yeah, the Traveler must stop you doing all the Kaczynski method. You don't turn into a salamander.
They still hadn't sort of really nailed down warp speed at this point. Because
no, they hadn't.
In TOS, warp speeds were calculated differently, so because the Enterprise got to warp 16 in one episode, so passing warp 10, it's sort of like
that's the thing.
I did assume that this was by the new scale, and it
should have been.
It was out the bounds of what they should be able to do.
It was, but even bearing that in mind, a lot of like stuff that we take as read for Trek canon now, they were still establishing that in the early days of TNG. And, you know, with TOS, they were making a lot of it up as they went along. Whereas TNG, they were like, okay, we're going to have rules and we're going to stick to them. But it took them a while, I think, to lock down what all the rules were going to be.
The other thing I was going to throw in as well, it's just a random one, but I thought it was kind of interesting. The Traveler chooses to sort of hide behind this kind of blowhard guy who he needs someone as well. Like he's obviously planned this because it's someone who believes he is as good.
Yeah, that's it.
Like good enough to do it, even though he on some level must know he's not doing it. So he's calculated in a Betazoid, like reading him, he has to believe he can do it.
Yeah.
He's calculated that
true.
If he's up front, then he can't act as because we, you know, in Prodigy we see that the Travelers don't like to be necessarily in the spotlight. They're working behind the scenes, like they will manipulate situations, like Wesley making Sela think that he's been kidnapped when he hasn't. Like, you know, he's in control of the situation. So I kind of like that sort of the seeds for that are sown here as well. Just
there is something with Traveler law that I want to see what you guys think, but we'll get there. Now I don't know if this is because the versions on Netflix are the HD remastered versions, but the effects looked absolutely gorgeous when they go to this other galaxy.
I remember the effects looking like this originally. This is one of the things I remember. This episode looked really, really good.
I remember it looking good, but I don't remember it looking this good.
I know it's been remastered. And like you said, Netflix is the HD remastered version. Unfortunately, they've not gone with the Blu-ray where the screen's pulled out, so we're still getting everything you're meant to get on screen.
Yeah, I thought that. That was a shame we didn't get the kind of widescreen.
I can't remember what ratio we're in.
No, it's the correct ratio.
For anyone watching who doesn't know this, it was really fascinating because to do that, they had to get the original footage, which they did film, so they had those side bits. So it wasn't stretched out. It was the filmed to be kind of like like Mon TV size, if you like. And they had to re-edit it, and they re-edited it painstakingly to look like the original edit. Music stinks in exactly the same places. They did not want to alter it, but they made it kind of be like, that's just, I just love that. Like I don't think a lot of there wasn't so much love for Star Trek. I think this was labor of love as much as a studio decision.
No, it was the Akudas who did it, wasn't it?
The worst one of that they've done this on was probably Buffy.
Yeah, the Buffy versions are terrible.
With Buffy, are they stretched, or did they film the side bits as well?
No, they've
literally gone, here's the original screen. And they haven't stretched it. They've sort of put a template on which is size of a modern screen. So you have heads cut and all sorts.
Basically what it's really, really bad what they've done with Buffy.
Because it was they did actually say to I think there's only a couple of shots. There's a couple of shots they couldn't do because they had lost the footage. And there's only a couple of shots where if you look, they've got stuff in those side bits, because a lot of them, the reason why they can't do this is because they knew where it would cut off, and they just put crap cameras and
and that's what the Buffy one looks like.
Whereas with Next Generation, they purposely they'd kept the shot clean. I don't know if they had the vision one day this would be a thing. I think they would just maybe a bit OCD about it. But
if they wanted to do DS9, they could do DS9 as well, because DS9 was shot the same, and there's nothing in any of the sides. It was shot as if it was for that size. It was ahead of its time.
Yeah, the only reason why that didn't get done because they were talking about it, but it was because the TNG releases didn't make as much.
It's a money thing.
I think it did all right, but not enough to justify it again.
So Wesley at this point there is talking to the Traveller, and I'd forgotten that this phrase was used, but they talk about space, time, and thoughts being the three important things, and obviously that comes back in Prodigy. And when I first heard it in Prodigy, I thought it was something that they'd elaborated on and kind of come up with themselves for Prodigy, but it was a really pleasant surprise going back to it and seeing, oh no, they actually took that from the episode. Yeah, I really, really liked that, noticing it.
Yeah.
And they get this thing, shall we explore while we're out here or not? And
let's look at it. They've travelled 2.7 million light years. And Geordie goes, it'll take us 300 years to get back. Now, Voyager went 70,000 light years and could travel faster than the Enterprise.
True.
And that was going to take 70 years to do that. Somebody's not doing the maths properly. All the maths is a total mess. To travel 2.7 million light years in 300 years, they'd have to be traveling at 1 light year per hour constantly.
Right.
And they can't.
I forgot what I was going to say. Never mind.
So, they decide, we'll go back.
All I could think of during the scene was just the people who are on other parts of the ship, though, while Picard's even making their decisions, turn on every fucking recorder we've got, recording every bit of data, just everything. Just turn out probes, and just to, I don't care if they're left there, just make sure they're beaming transmitting all the data back as they go.
All these science stations. Right, now's your time. I like to think on the Enterprise that the science stations have got that autonomy that they don't have to wait for the captain to say.
You'd think so.
What should have been happening
and we're doing this, and all these science stations are taking in masses of data.
What should have been happening is while they would, Picard was having that conversation going, well, I think maybe we should just people running about, just hitting buttons frantically. It's record everything. Why are we recording yet?
And so they decide, where the Kaczynski method, if it works, we'll send a proper science team will get sent back. It'll be fine.
No, it's not just the Kaczynski method. He now wants to have the speed stunning the Kaczynski.
Oh, I know. Yeah. He does, doesn't he? He's like, we should rewrite the scale.
Yeah, we can call it the Kaczynski scale.
It'd be good if the Traveller started getting arsey. We're like, here, how about we call it the Traveller scale? Do one. But anyway, they go again, and this time they end up somewhere.
Well, he's adamant, isn't he, on the bridge? He goes, no, it's a wonderful thing that's happened. I dreamt this was possible, but didn't think we could actually do it. And it's like, no, you didn't think this was possible, you lying bastard. And it's like, of course I can do it again to get us back.
Well, I genuinely think he's of that level of social. He is Donald Trump. He's basically Trump levels of like, no, I totally did this. I totally got us here. Like, even though the Travelers told him that's not what's happening.
Yeah,
that was the best journey ever. There's never been a journey like it before. No one's ever journeyed like this.
If I hit the return button right now, we'll be back to Earth. We'll be to a classier Earth. It'll be a better Earth.
I could get you back like that. We'll go at Kaczynski 2, and we'll take in all the trees as we go past. But yeah, this takes them where the power of thought can create things. And Worf gets a tag, which is some poor bloody pig that they've dressed up. I've forgotten about this. The poor little bugger.
Doesn't look bad though. I mean, it's like
no.
It looks alright.
Let's look at this in comparison. So the tag, I don't think it looks bad what they've done as a tag.
No, it doesn't.
And this is so let's bear in mind this is only the 6th episode of TNG. 5th if you count Farpoint was the 2-parter. And before that we had TOS.
Oh yeah. And
last time we had an animal dressed up to look like an alien, we had a poodle with a horn stuck on its head.
This is true. This is true.
Moved on a lot.
I love that poodle with a horn's head. Whatever.
And then what you've got to remember as well. Oh, go on.
Oh no, go on, mate.
I was going to say this is, in England, this was 6 o'clock, BBC 2, Wednesday nights. And so Worf sees his tag. Oh, cute little piggy. And then Tasha sees a cat, and also the rape gangs. And she says, I was running from the rape gangs. Ma'am, what's a rape gang? What are you watching at 6 o'clock on BBC 2?
Oh, God, if you listen to Tasha's dialogue from the time, like, she drops the rape gang card. Like,
I know.
It's wild. But just the talk very quickly, and then we'll go into the cat and the rape gangs.
Oh, I'm done. I'm done with that.
Well, no, I've got some points on all three of these. Because the Targ, it's interesting to note that Worf says about having a pet one when he was a kid, which I assume by the dialogue of the time, like with what they'd fleshed out of the character, I assume they're thinking on the Klingon homeworld as writers. But what we know now is the poor Regenkos. Poor Regenkos had a bloody Targ running around their house.
Yeah, they were like, we'll have to buy him a tag.
Well, is it that though? Because he only went to the Regenkos after his family got killed.
Yeah, but he was a baby at the time.
He was very, very young.
Yeah, he was about 5 or 6. So
I didn't think you were that old.
Well, I'd imagine the Targ. Okay, we'll do it. We'll do a compromise. But they brought the Targ with his parents, and then he came with his own Targ.
I've got it.
I was about to say, looking at the Regenkos, I could actually see them letting him have a tag to make it feel better.
No,
but they have to put up with it still.
Yeah. What's happened, and it explains the makeup. Is Worf's been like homesick for the Klingon Empire, and he's, I really wish I had a tag. They go, I'll get you a tag, and they've gone and got a pig, and they've gone stress it up, and that's why that is the only time when we see a tag it looks like a pig, because it's Worf's memory of his tag,
and that's why it doesn't look like is it Korgoth from Star Trek 3?
Yeah, what is his name? That's going to annoy me. But yes, I know who you mean.
Star Trek 3 was before this.
Krug.
And we saw his air tag.
That's it. On the so
we have seen the tag previously.
So this isn't the first tag sighting.
No.
So we do know what a tag should look like.
It's a
So,
fake tag.
Wolf had a fake tag.
Fake tag.
Instead, they've got
made
a
out
pig
of a
running
pig.
around the place. They could have dressed up a dog at least.
No, what's happened is Wolf's
Right.
adoptive dad's gone down the pub and he's been talking to people going, my son really wants a tag. And some fella's gone, I'll get you a tag.
Count.
Don't worry, I've got one. It looks like a pig. No. Tag is that, mate. That is a tag.
Right. So they're there. They've got a pig running around the place, shitting all over the place, in disguise as a tag, and the disguise must never come off. You've got Wolf probably being quite honourable and walking the pig tag.
Oh, I'm
very
sure.
good. But in the meantime, they're
Next.
dealing with his dickhead human brother who's just causing mayhem, as we find out later.
Yeah.
And the fact that whenever he's at school, they've got to sort out a fucking pig. I mean, I think my point still stands. The Rozhenkos took on a lot of shit.
Oh, they were great parents.
Right.
They went well above them. I mean, they even took on Alexander. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Right. So God knows his dad didn't, but we've covered the same.
Yeah, but like we have all seen Alexander, it's hard to actually blame Worf in the Alexander situation.
Yeah, but if Worf hadn't been such a dick of a parent, maybe he would have turned out better. I'm just saying. I blame the parent.
I think his mum spoiled him, to be fair.
Yeah, it's all Kayla's fault.
It is Kayla's fault.
And she died on purpose to get rid of him.
Well, we even get in the episode after Journey's End. We even have that his mother had told him that he didn't have to do any of the Klingon rights or anything.
That's true.
So she ruined him before Worf started looking after him. So I think Worf is perfectly justified in being an arsehole to Alexander.
Yeah, because God knows he couldn't just.
I'm going to defend Worf for a change.
I think defending
Worf's had a hard time for a long time.
I mean, maybe he could have spent more than a day parenting. I don't know. Maybe that might work.
And then,
I mean, he literally tried the least he could. But anyway,
when Alexander got to his grandparents, it was like, Grandad, can I have a tag? Also, can we have bacon for supper? You can have one or the other. We can't do both.
Right. So we got the tags going to go. The cat I thought was really interesting because not only was it a cat which he had as a pet, it was the same sort of coloration as Spot. I'm wondering if this is where Jake got the idea.
Oh, yeah.
Seeing this cat here, knowing it meant a lot to Tasha, and he was so in love with Tasha and everything. I think that's very good.
I like that.
That's good.
Yeah,
and then I was just going to say the same thing about the rape gang. It's just wild how much she talks about
it's just
family show.
Yeah,
it's just so random that
As I said,
anyway.
I was 16, 17, so it didn't have that same thing on me. But I can imagine you being 7 watching this and going, "Well, what's a rape gang?"
No, the thing is,
when me by, I don't think
that's the thing. It's I forget the name for it, but it is a psychological thing that kids are able to do. Like you literally filter out things you don't understand and you don't question it. Whereas adults, we think, "Oh, hang on, what did that mean?" Whereas kids, it just goes over your head, and And
also, if you think about our context for the word rape at the time, it's and pillaging for pirates. It just means going off and nicking some stuff, basically, and maybe getting off with a girl. Like that's probably our understanding at that stage. So when we hear another context, like, "Oh, that ain't so bad," I mean, I'm not saying that now. I'm saying as a kid, you don't get the context of it. Just to be really clear.
We get loads of other random stuff. We've got somebody ballet dancing. We've got somebody playing the piano.
Yeah, I have a question about those bits.
Go on.
Because isn't the first one we see Picard? Because doesn't he steps out
Picard's sort of walking through the corridors, and we keep getting intercut with this scene of somebody dancing and somebody on the piano.
Because because when Picard sees the crew member who's doing the ballet dancing, he goes, "What are you doing? Is it?" But then she changes to being in a uniform. It's almost like it seems like the implication is that he's. Sorry, can I just finish the thing and then say your theory?
Yeah.
Because it's almost like he's reacting as if he can't see the ballet outfit. But but we see them interacting with the other hallucinations earlier. It seems to not be very consistent. But I don't.
I was about to say it's not consistent because that one is played as if he can't see what she's imagining. That's her own imagination. But other people can see each other's stuff.
But with Tasha, she sees herself back on her home world, whereas because Geordie like pats her on the shoulder and she's like, so yeah, sometimes it's you're there in your head, sometimes it's everyone can see it.
Maybe that is a feature. I mean, there's no reason why that can't be a feature.
No, exactly.
Some of them are visible to others, some of them aren't.
Yeah, and it's all a weird thing anyway, because it's all about thought in it as opposed to And is it like people can see some of the objects people are thinking of, but they can't see the experience,
the surroundings, and I don't know.
They can see the objects they're thinking of, but they can't see the experience.
It's inconsistent, but within the logic of the story, it can be inconsistent. Yeah.
And the other thing which I thought was interesting was Picard sees Maman, his mum.
He does.
And we've later on, obviously, in Picard, seen her dying when she's younger than this. But I kind of like the idea that it's kind of him imagining as if she lived on.
Well, it is.
I think there's a poetry thing there.
Picard says that in Picard. He says, I used to imagine her as an older woman. And it actually ties in quite nicely because he does say to the vision of her, he says it's not possible. And at the time, when it was broadcast, you read that as it's not possible because
she used to be here.
She's dead, whereas now you can read it as he knows that's not what his mum looked like. So they actually did that very, very cleverly, how they got away with that one.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably why I thought of it then, because they planted that in my head and I just forgotten that little bit.
Yeah, it's very nicely done. So yeah, they're all the visions and everything. Then we find out all the travelers dying and everyone's calling Wesley the boy. Like, Wesley tried to tell me about it, Captain, but I didn't listen. What, the boy tried to tell you? Yes, the boy did try to tell me. And then he goes, Wesley goes, my name's Wesley. Yes, we know the boy. Be quiet.
I do like the fact, I mean, it's not just like Star Trek is certainly not the only one or even the worst to be guilty of this. But I love it just like, you're too busy that you can't hear the end of the sentence when that guy obviously looks distressed, but you'll hear Wesley out in the middle of high pressure situations other times. It's just it's a convenience that they don't have time.
We will ignore Wesley when it's plot convenient to do so.
Exactly. Yeah.
So then you get this. This is where the travelers sort of planting the seeds, and I like this thing that he talks about. Like he's like Mozart was with music, but he's like that with warp engines and
warp fields,
and so I think that's a really cool idea. And but basically what this comes down to is, okay, we all need to think happy thoughts so we can get home. And Kaczynski has a good line here where he goes, no, I really thought I was doing it. And it's, oh, shut up, no you didn't.
Is it? Well, no, I think that's a psychopathy. I think it's because he's fucked up in the head. I think
he honestly thought,
yeah,
I just keep putting random stuff in and it keeps working. I'll be able to sell this.
Well, as much as I don't want to invoke Trump, because if I say it one more time, he appears. But it's the same thing. It's the whole thing of when he was first on the scene. I think we all used to think that he was making up, that he believed he was doing this stuff, or that he was capable of all these kind of things, which he clearly wasn't, and he was so inconsistent. I think in his head he squares away. I genuinely don't think he thinks he's lying, and I think it's the same with this guy. The sociopath. It's just
I don't think Kaczynski's as bad as Trump. I mean,
no, it's the same condition, different manifestation.
Like all he was doing was altering the intermix flow into the engine.
Yeah.
And he thinks that I've made us go faster than the speed.
It's like we used to have this vending machine in our sixth form common room, and there was a rumor that if you ordered a Whisper Gold, which was number 17, and you kept pressing 7, then it dropped all of them, and people believed it. They were like, oh, it's great. And it was because very occasionally the machine wasn't very well fixed. So every so often it had dropped 2 of whatever you'd you're done. But people were convinced, it's the Whisper Gold trick. And it's kind of like that. Like, if I just change the intermix, it'll make us go at warp 10. It'll be fine.
It also kind of works with the fact that the Traveler's very kind of kind to him all the way through. And he's always kind of going to say, no, he's not a bad person. I think maybe the Traveler's like almost like gone into his delusions and said, it's like, no, you can do it. Yeah, you're doing all this because he doesn't want to be in the spotlight. Well, I think that's why he's being nice to him, because he's kind of not in a completely shitty way, but he has used him a bit for his own ends.
Yeah.
And let that guy have the limelight because he didn't want it. He didn't want to be,
Yeah. Well, it said that he was using him because he needed to travel to get somewhere.
Yeah.
And obviously where he needed to get to was on the Enterprise with Wesley.
Yeah, and it's
he's quite happy for him to take the plaudits trick because he doesn't want to expose himself as being what the Travelers are. We're not meant to know what the Travelers are.
And it even works, like, to add to your theory, you were saying it's like, because the Traveler needs to be where he needs to be to meet Wesley. But as Wesley said in Prodigy, he said it's like, I sometimes don't even know why I'm doing something.
Yeah.
Maybe even the Traveler didn't even know that it was to meet Wesley, but he knew there was something important was going to happen there. And once he's there, it was like, oh, it's you.
Yeah.
Like that.
I'll go with that. So they get home, the Traveller disappears, and they make Wesley an acting ensign. But like you say, even so, Picard still does it in a bit of a snipey way.
And Kaczynski's reputation is in absolute tatters.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's done.
I was this close to saying, shut up, Wesley. I was waiting for it, damn it.
Yeah, not yet. And then... Yeah, so this is the point that he gets made an acting ensign, and they do the whole, we better make him an acting ensign then, because otherwise he can't come on the bridge.
Yeah, I'd be breaking my own order.
But it's almost like this is the first, even though he's doing in a bit of a, even though he's not very open and everything, I think this is Picard's way of reaching out just a little bit, and we see him having that journey later. I think this is the first step of him.
And it is acknowledging that Wesley's very capable. It's like, no, actually, there is something about him. Like, we better give him something to do,
And then they try and kill Wesley by putting him on the little rickety seat, which has no back to it. Like, were there no DSC assessors in the in this time period?
Well, to be fair, the whole TNG bridge is stupid. You've got the security officer who's got to run down the ramp and jump over a wooden banister every time the bridge gets invaded.
Yeah.
And then on his working on that wooden panel, as soon as the ship gets hit, it's flying over it every time.
It's all right, because DSC Inspector is what Kaczynski will end up doing after this fiasco. If he's lucky, that's what he'll get. So then we jump 6 seasons to Journey's End, which is the final Wesley episode.
This is season 7, episode 20. So we actually, as far from the end as we are from the beginning with the 2 episodes, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I just, on a general point, just want to say it's like it really also shows how much Will Wheaton, even though he's an amazing actor, like anyone who's seen Stand By Me knows he's an amazing actor from the get-go. But it shows how he's matured as an actor as well. I just want to give him those kind of props as well.
What's weird now is seeing Will Wheaton without a beard. Like, clean-shaven Will Wheaton just looks so odd these days. You forget, like, how, because even here, like, obviously this is season 7. So he must have been in his early 20s maybe by this point, but he looks so young. It's just... anyway.
How old was he in season 1?
Oh, was he about 15, 14, 15?
14, 15, so 7 years later, he's going to be, 21, 22.
It's just weird, but anyway. So... Admiral Nechayev's coming to see them, and they've also picked up Wesley as the setup and everything.
Pick up a member of the family again. Showing
a member of the family.
He would never have done that in a captain's log. I don't think even many of the series up until now. Like the 7th series, I think, is where he started really talking in terms of family and
Oh, they should have gone old school with the log entry, like Admiral Nechayev's coming to see us, and also we're going to pick up the boy.
Admiral Chev, the bitch, is coming aboard, and we've got to pick up the boy.
Well, I had forgotten why there's this much tension with Admiral Nechayev, and then I looked it up, and basically she was in Chain of Command, so she's the one who said we're really, we're putting someone else in charge of the Enterprise. And she was in Descent, where she bollocked him for going, well, you should have sent Hugh back and destroyed them all.
Yeah.
So this is actually quite nice continuity for a guest star, which we didn't get a lot of in TNG.
Yeah, he was definitely the most antagonistic of the guest admirals. And even in this one, when you do see shades of her, I think, in her own way, trying. Like,
yeah,
he does realize that he's made the effort. But even then, like, he goes like, come on, I think this may be a bit culturally insensitive, seeing as we've already moved like, some nasty parallels to history. And she goes like, well, we can make someone else the captain again. It's like, for fuck's sake, man.
Yeah,
like,
I've got Jellicoe on speed dial.
That was such a cow move. Like,
Yeah,
it was
one phone call, Captain Picard. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
Like,
but yeah.
Fuck you.
We'll be back to a 4-shift rotation.
Yeah. Are you enjoying your 3-shift rotations?
It's
They're not
5
gonna...
shifts. No, there's 4.
So Wesley turns up. How's the academy been? Oh yeah, the academy's been great. But then he's kind of like, oh, when he's alone, and that's the end of the teaser.
Oh, and we got Data making a joke just to like. I bet
Geordie, yes.
Even though it's 7 seasons in, I bet Geordie had to prep him for so long. It's like, so we're going to pretend that we're going to take him to the brick, that he's in trouble for goofing off. It's like, but he's not in trouble. He's on his downtime. He should be able to relax. No, Data, fuck. We've been through this 20 times already. This is a joke.
Right, Data, it's either that or you've got to call him the boy constantly. Like, anyway, so that's the setup, and this all ties into what was going on in DS9 with the Maquis, and it's the Cardassian border, and this is a colony that's on the other side of it. Yeah. And it was nice how DS9 and TNG, though they didn't really do any full-blown all-out crossovers. Like, we got that bit where Dr. Bashir visits for 2 minutes, and we got Tom Riker in it, but you know what I mean, we didn't do
there wasn't as much as there could have been.
But it was nice that you got this idea that, oh, actually, this is a broader galaxy, and something that changes the galaxy in TNG is going to impact DS9 and vice versa.
Which was great, and then it set up Voyager lovely with
going
to have the Maquis and everything. It was beautifully set up. When when I was watching this, I was thinking the prep work that went into this, because we had like the Cardassian Federation sort of in chain of command, antagonistic against each other again. Then we get this, and we've got bits and pieces on DS9, and it was beautifully set up for the
It was.
There was a lot of effort put in to make sure, right, we need a story in TNG to set this up as well. We're going to be setting it up in DS9. And then we got 1 episode of it in Voyager after all the set. Oh,
true. But anyway.
Can we just
go on?
Because this is as good a place as any to mention things we're bringing up the Native Americans in it. This has to be, especially things in Voyager, I don't think they use the wrong terminology. This has to be the latest you can get in TV, where they were still reliably saying Indian as opposed to Native American.
Yeah, and it really sticks out like a sore thumb now.
They use it so often. I'm like, stop saying it, please stop saying it.
Yeah.
But at the time, it wasn't an issue.
I think it was starting to be a conversation at that time.
It was, yeah. There was time. But yeah, it was still commonly accepted, and it's weird because like other characters say it, and then when it gets to Picard, I'm like, Picard's not going to say that, but he does, and I'm like, anyway. So yes, we've addressed the elephant in the room. They do say Indian throughout this episode.
I'll hold my hands up.
Oh, don't hold your hand up. What are you saying? This? Don't.
No, that makes it worse.
Please.
That turns you into Hulk Hogan, which we really
And don't say,
want.
No,
how did this happen? No,
but-
just don't. We're not
But
going.
when I was a kid growing up, it was always Cowboys
Yeah,
and Indians.
it was.
Yeah,
No, absolutely it was.
Like the play which I'm doing, Blue Remembered Hills, the Maskers Theatre in Shirley, Southampton, at the end of the month.
Are tickets still on sale for that?
Tickets are still on sale. If you go to just look up Masker Studio, Southampton. Anyway, yeah, there is like it's set during the war, so there's lots of playing Cowboys and Indians and lots of other stuff, which you certainly would not do now. But we're being reflective of the times. But yeah, it's I think it is just. It's unfortunate for them that they're the last through the door because it's the latest. When you use this terminology, even when we get to Voyager, Native American is used. I think.
No, Chakotay does say Indian. In Basics Part 2, he says like, "I'm sorry, Captain, you've picked the only Indian who can't make fire from a stick."
Haven't you?
Yeah.
Which I remember at the time thinking, "Ooh."
But they didn't have a good
Which
cultural
just goes
advisor
to
on there.
prove how
Was the
rubbish
culture-
Chakotay is.
Unfortunately, when they were writing that script or checking it, the consultant which they had hired was off at Temple at the time. So
yeah, maybe TNG had the same cultural advisor as Voyager, and that would explain a lot of things. Anyway, so Picard, as we said, has got this thing where he's not happy about it because it's a forced relocation, and he talks about history. Not happy about it, but willing to carry out the orders. Not so much when we get to Insurrection, are we, Picard? Is it maybe because there isn't anyone you want to shag in this village?
I definitely think there is a thing here. It is kind of
a fair point.
This is where I would have this is what I was talking about with I would have tweaked Wesley here, because the fact that and I know you've got a theory in a second, Elliot, about why he's acting like he is, but for me, I think if you're trying to show that by the end of the episode he's evolving basically beyond most humans, I think you set up that he's like at odds with people, not because he's being a dick, but because he's like, no, I know this, like the way you're doing, there's a better way of doing, like, I think he could have been a bit more like this. And when it comes to Picard, he could have been a great mirror to Picard. Of like, I think they sort of underplay it, but it's in there a little bit. But they should have played up a bit more.
Yeah, it's very Route One with Wesley. It's very just stroppy teenager sort of thing.
Right.
Well, I was going to say with Wesley, just to complete the thought, with Wesley and Picard, I thought it was really good they had this relationship, so that Picard starts off kind of just liking having a kid on his bridge, realize it's his essentially his nephew by dint of his best friend, and then they grow a relationship over time. I think it would have been a wonderful end to that if Wesley taught him something.
Yeah,
I think that should have been highlighted a bit better. I think that would have been so much more satisfying. And like, you know, when he resigns his command, where Picard picks up the badge, I think that's kind of implying it, but they could have built that a little bit.
They could have done, definitely.
Sorry, Andy.
Well, I was going to say, I think one of the reasons Wesley's so stroppy in this, and I don't think it's anything to do with the Enterprise crew. I think it's just that naturally that way. Like, we've got the first duty where he's nearly been thrown out of the academy.
Yeah, true.
He's been allowed to stay on at the academy, and he's still in the academy. His life must have been absolute shit from his tutors.
That's a fair point, actually.
Afterwards, and probably other cadets as well. Like, you were involved in trying to cover up someone being killed, and his life has probably been really shit. And he's probably studying hard, and you get that he's obviously still studying. If you read the latest paper on this, if you read this,
yeah, true.
But he's just not happy with Starfleet and being one.
Yeah, that would have been better if they'd have brought that in. Yeah, if he'd have said something, you know, well, after you know what happened with Nick Lucano. Yeah, I bet that's all that happens to now. I bet whenever he winds people up, they go, "Oh, Wesley, why don't you just go do a Cobalt Starburst? Go on."
Or have an opal fruit.
I mean, I agree. I think that would have been a more interesting take.
Yeah, I think it explains why he's so stroppy.
Yeah, because if you did it that way, because at the moment they've just gone being stroppy for no defined
Yeah.
reasons. And
Yeah, it's just he's not happy at the academy.
It doesn't fit any of the
it.
things they're doing. It doesn't fit him evolving at the end.
No.
I mean, it would have been nice if he was getting stroppy, like you say, for those reasons. And then maybe the Traveller said, it's like, well, are you actually annoyed at that? Or are you really annoyed because you're not being challenged enough? And he
that would have been good.
Because it's not really established why the Traveller's in disguise. I guess it feeds into the whole thing of them never being, in the spotlight. But what happened to that guy afterwards? Like, because they've all got to, like, the way it's introduced is as if that guy has already been there. So has he taken over his identity? Was it a real guy? Has he implanted memory?
Yeah, not sure on that one. But yeah, one of the bits with Wesley. So Geordie's like, come and have a look at this, Wesley. And Wesley's like, it's the right load of khakis, this. Haven't you read this new thing? But then, so yeah, he's a bit stroppy. And then Geordie gets the hump with him completely. And he's like, I don't want to hear from you. Like, Wesley might have had a point there, Geordie. He probably has read more manual. But anyway. But then the way Picard and Beverly talk about it, it's like, calm down. They're like, the engineering incident with Geordie was inexcusable.
Well,
really? He was a little bit stroppy with him? Get over it.
I think you misread the scene because he insults Geordie's engineering prowess. He insults, the Enterprise. Most importantly, he insults the engines. You know how Geordie feels. He's got a sexual relationship with those engines. Like, he's insulting his girlfriend, basically. And I think Beverly got that. It's Wesley who just doesn't understand the love which he shared.
But Beverly should have talked to Wesley and gone, look, Wesley, I thought that was pretty funny, right? But not to slag off Geordie's engines. All right.
He has holodeck programs about these engines.
Yeah, he does.
There's a cutscene from Relics where Scotty accidentally goes into that program and goes, what the fuck? Look, I love this ship. I'm not trying to fuck it.
Yeah, Scotty had never done that. Rose has joined us again.
Yeah,
so
good evening, Rose.
Says, thank you for the memories. Why not speculate what's going to happen in Lower Decks? We will do plenty of speculation as to what's going to happen in Lower Decks in a couple of weeks' time. Don't worry, we'll get there. So
I just want to say I am getting the feeling that Rose is very excited for Lower Decks. Based on the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think Rose is excited. We're all excited.
Perfectly reasonable.
And sweet dreams, Rose. That's a very nice. Sorry, just for anyone who's listening already. Hey, just think Star Trek Lower Decks is only 15 days to go.
15 days to go.
Night. I've got to resubscribe to Paramount Plus.
And retrek to chat and retrek.
Yeah, got to resubscribe to Paramount. Anyway, so yeah, there's the mysterious guy who's totally not the Traveller, but might be the Traveller, who keeps talking to Wesley.
Sorry, you also get like Crusher blatantly just bringing up when the Traveller visited before. No reason for it to mention it other than the fact that guy's the Traveller.
Yeah, well,
if he is. And when it's revealed, it's so we've remembered who that character is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not, there are ways of doing that subtly in a script, but not so much here.
It's an interesting point. Did you know the guy who plays the Traveller? I can't remember his name, but he originally had been cast for Data.
I think somewhere in the back of my mind, I think I did know.
Yeah.
Like it.
I think that was rattling around in there somewhere.
He played a couple of other roles apart from just the Traveller, but they give him roles because they really like him
as
an actor.
And then the Native Americans start giving Picard a bit too much shit, where they're like, well, actually, since we last spoke to you, I've been on Ancestry.com and I've found out that one of your ancestors were involved. So watch yourself.
So it's Ancestry.space because it's in the future.
Yeah, of course. Sorry. Yeah. Which I think, they're being a bit, it's almost like they're trying to fit an extra level of conflict in here, which is a bit.
I
did love this.
Picard, you were to blame for us being relocated last time.
So you can't kick us out this time because your great granddad did something.
But I like the way they couched it though. It's like we want you to be able to, like, I know you're going to take the stain of blood off your ancestors. That's really nice. I thought that was kind of quite poetic, and I love the to and fro, because Picard wants to do the right thing. They believe he's going to ultimately, and I love the fact that he's like, they go like about, oh, it behooves you to know as much about your adversary as about, you know, they know about you. And he goes, well, hopefully you won't see me as an adversary, Brendan. Yeah. That's all lovely. But at the end of it, it's not Picard deciding to do the right thing. Wesley forces his hand, and then
and they still don't quite they don't get the outcome they were looking for.
I thought it was an elegant ending if Picard had come up with it. It's the fact that Picard didn't really, like, he sort of did in the end, but it's like he didn't choose to.
I don't think he did at all, really.
I think you needed you needed a moment where Picard made the decision to do the right thing. Otherwise, it doesn't matter.
No, I think they stumbled into it. I think it was just once it all kicked off, they were like, right, what options have we got left?
Well, it was, they were literally, right, people have started shooting each other here.
Oh, and there was a lovely, I love the moment on the bridge with the Gold Masset.
Gul Evek, who actually, Gul Evek is in DS9, TNG, and Voyager. So
Gul Evek, sorry, go ahead.
He sort of links the whole Mackie thing together, really, across all three shows.
I knew he'd been in other episodes because I remembered him, but I couldn't have told you which ones. But he just had that lovely speech about, like, I lost.
That's
I've got 3 sons. I lost 2 in the last war. I'm not going to lose the 3rd. And it's also kind of, it's especially, I think, great. Again, this is a bit of hindsight that I can't give the writers credit for this, but later on, where we see the Kardashian justice system and how much he would have been in the shit, he would have got to, like, maybe worked his way back up to gold by the time we see him next. He would have been doing garbage skulls. He would have been on the worst kind of shit list. He's lucky to still be alive from the Kardashian system after doing this.
To be fair, we have seen a lot of Goldie Cat, and we know how roller coastery it is. The rank system in Cardassian, because we see him as a gull, and then he's nothing, and then he's a gull, and then he rules the entire planet, and then he's nothing, and then he's a religious leader.
Yeah, he's a cult.
You see that with these dictators and wannabe dictators. Again, I'm not going to say his name a 3rd time because he will appear. But you see when someone's not convenient to you or doing something that you don't like, they get pushed away, and then if they've done something to earn your favor again, they can be back in the inner circle. So it seems very true to life, but you bet he got a lot of shit after this. So he's doing the right thing for the sake of the right thing, not that it's going to do him any favors later, which just adds that layer from what we know from later on, basically.
And meanwhile, Wesley has this vision quest and sees his dad, who says, don't follow in my footsteps, and that.
And the same guy from the earlier episode.
Doesn't that mean don't die in a radiation experiment?
Well, that too.
Which is very good advice, Dad.
Don't let Picard steal your wife.
I mean, he has so few. Like, he's got one scene, 2 scenes in 2 episodes, 1 in each episode. And the kind of one where he's on the holodeck leaving that message to Wesley, and this one I think are really good. Just want to get back. I really liked it. I just always stuck with me. Just that, like going from kind of cold to having to sell that I'm your dad recording this message before you were born, and just like all his doubts and worries and everything. He played that really well, and like it's nice to see him back again in this episode.
And I appreciate they've only got 1 episode to do this whole arc with Wesley, so you've got to be economical with it. But it is quite a sudden switch where he comes out and goes, "Hey, up, Worf, what's going on here?" "Oh, well, don't tell anyone, we're going to beam everyone." "Oi, hey, he's trying to beam you all out, yay!" But I do like the way Picard deals with it. Like, Picard absolutely gives him a bollocking, which is fine. But then at the end of the episode, once he has resigned, they're fine with him, and I really like the sort of maturity of that they're like, as a Starfleet officer, what you did was bang out a line. But now you've left, and you're telling us this is what you want to do with your life. We support you. And I just think that's really, really good how they handle that.
You're breaking orders, but you were morally right.
Yeah.
You were taking the morally right decision, but you were breaking orders.
Well, that's what I would have just added to the script. Again, I feel like this whole episode is like if it was just if they had another two passes at the script, if they had another, well, I don't even think that. I think you could have done it within the same amount of time. You just needed another couple of passes at the script, and there was a great episode within there which just isn't always realized. There's enough of it that it's still very enjoyable, but I think it could have been one of the best episodes really if they'd written it correctly.
It's not a go back and watch loads episodes, which is bizarre for how when you look at the mythology and now building up of Star Trek with what we've done in Prodigy and Picard of Wesley. You'd think this would be an episode you'd go back and watch even more, but it still doesn't.
I will actually give it this. I think it's the episode you don't purposely go back to rewatch, but when it comes up on a rewatch, you're really happy because it's better than you remember it. Like,
it's a good
but again,
one.
It's just frustrating that it should have been one of the best episodes.
I think with what they're doing, because like we're setting up, this is literally for the start of the marquee, how it starts. Plus, we've got Wesley going off for his bits and that, and 42 minutes is not enough time.
If Voyager had been a bit further on in production, it would have been amazing if we could have had Chakotay as part of this colony and had Robert Beltran, and just had him film a scene knowing they've cast him.
Yeah.
And Voyager doesn't start for a while. And then when it starts, you go, oh, it's that guy. But anyway,
I also want to just throw in a little Easter egg, which is in here as well. I think this is purposeful. I think it's got to be. The last thing that Beverly Crusher says to Wesley, she says, like, I'll make sure you wrap up warm. We don't know what the weather's like on other planes of existence. And when you see him in Prodigy, of course, he's got all his 80s jumpers. I think that's like we all pointed out, we all spotted that they were the 80s jumpers.
Yeah.
I think this line is
he's doing what his mum told him to do.
Because he's offering jumpers to everyone as well, which is very nice. Yeah.
Now, in terms of what you said about the script could have done another pass, I think the reason we need to let them off for it is because the teleplay and he's got story credits, but the story credit has 3 credits, but the actual teleplay was written by Ronald D. Moore, who I can only imagine at the same time was writing All Good Things and Star Trek Generations. So
and
he had a fair bit on his plate at the time, so that's probably why this one didn't get quite the polish it could have done.
You had Brent Spiner was on the podcast Inside of You, which also Michael Dawn's on this week, and who else was it? Oh yeah, Ella Perel. She's the one who was Rock in. She was Gwen in Prodigy.
All right, yeah.
She was on Off Menu podcast this week. So good week for podcasts with Star Trek people on. So check those out. But the one with Brent Spiner in it for Inside of You. He said about he had 2 episodes back to back. You're filming 26 episodes a season, which is insane. And he the most he could hope to do was he always made sure he had some take on the what he was going to do. That's where you get Musaka and the mask and everything from, and they talked about that. But it must have been the same for the writers. They must have just we've got an episode, we've got a plot in there, and this again has got everything in the plot. Yeah, if this had been given more time to cook, this could have been one of the best episodes. I really think it could be up there in top 10 of Star Trek Next Generation. Yeah. As it stands, it's an underdeveloped one.
It is
a good story within it.
And it's great that someone picked up the Wesley thread all these years later, and it's a much more satisfying end to Wesley's character than going, he's graduated the academy. At least they did something interesting with it.
The thing is, the Wesley thread is something that no one had asked for. But it's something that we all wanted once we saw it.
Yeah, it was awesome.
The Wesley thread has been brilliant.
Oh, and just Will Wheaton. I've said it before. I love the fact that they basically just made older Wesley Will Wheaton. And I don't get it. Yeah. I'm happy with that. He's an uber dork. He's a great guy. Perfect.
It's like we saw when we watched Picard season 2. We were straight away. they need to do another season with
Yeah.
Wesley. They need a season with Wesley, what he's doing as a traveller. And Prodigy did it.
Well, and I'm saying now, when you bring back Legacy, I'm still pitching for this. You've got Uncle Q and Uncle Wesley,
Yeah.
or, brother Wesley, older brother Wesley, fighting for
Oh,
who's gonna
yeah.
be the Guardian
Yeah.
of Jack.
I think
One
that'd be
episode of that,
great.
and then both of them
That'd
get
be really
through.
funny.
Oh, it'd be great. And then you get sort of maybe a because there's been several like references to the fact that the Q do have arguments with other races, like Guinan's race. And,
Yeah.
Well, I can imagine them having a lot of arguments with the travellers who are using Fork to get around and interfering in time and manipulating it. And like, it wouldn't surprise me if they did go further on this. If you had one of the travellers' remits was actually putting things right when the Q had been just fucking about all over the place.
No, well, the way I was thinking of it in my head canon was the fact that there's an accord that they're not allowed to interfere with each other's business because otherwise they'd be constantly at war. But individually, they're not happy with each other. They don't like each other.
Because you get the idea the travellers go around fixing things. And we know that the Q mess things up all over the place. And I just like the idea that there's this other
that'd be great.
race that are going around and fixing things and manipulating it to put it right after the Q have done whatever, messed about, having the fun.
Yeah.
Well, we'll wrap up there then for now on this one. But next week, if you thought we had covered racial insensitivity enough this time, we're going in two-footed. We've looked at Wesley. We're gonna revisit Retrek favourite Chakotay, and we're going to look at two of his greatest moments. We're going to look at the episode Tattoo, and we're going to look at the episode The Fight.
And we'll be back. Let's just get this right. We'll be on a Monday next week.
Monday next week. Oh, that means I've got to watch 2 Chakotay episodes over the next few days. Oh, no.
I just, I do like this idea that we're sort of like doing it's like the Prodigy Plus. This is our extra little
Well, it is Prodigy Plus because we've done the nice little couple of episodes, and I think these been a great 2 episodes to look back on it.
Yeah.
How Wesley became a traveller. And we've spent quite a long time being nice to Chakotay. We just have to remind ourselves, no, we don't like it.
And that's what we're doing next week. But in the meantime, you can get in touch with us at RetrekPod on Twitter or X, retrekpod@gmail.com. We're on all the socials, including Retrek Model Studios on YouTube.
There won't be a new video till I get a new house now because my model studio is in boxes now.
Fair enough, but there's a whole back catalogue there for you to check out.
Elliot, you should do like a little video of your favourite builds, like just talking about them.
And
I haven't. They're all boxed up, so I can't even show them to do that.
And Dr. Squee, what have we got with the Dr. Squee show?
Well, we're breaking the Dr. Squee drought with yourself, Jim. We're going to be talking about Twin Peaks. So it being Halloween month, we've been doing a rewatch. We've rewatched the first series, or I'm just on the last episode. Now you've rewatched it. And we're going to do one episode on the first series, and then in the next couple of weeks, we're going to do an episode on series 2, part 1 and part 2. And then next month, maybe do a bit on the return.
Oh God, the return! I'm gonna need some paracetamol before we start that one. But yes,
would you also like to mention why we've got to take a week off before Prodigy?
Well, because you mean my play, which is
you might like to put a plug in
the Maskers Theatre. Yeah, I know. I'm acting as if I didn't like it. Oh, you mean my play, which is happening at the Maskers Theatre, which 7:30 from it ends on the 26th, which is the Saturday. So it's that Monday to the Saturday, 21st, whatever it works out as 6-night run. Tickets available now. Please do book. Go to Maskers Theatre, Southampton.
Share the link in the Retrek Facebook group, and then anyone who needs to find it can find it in there. So yeah, we will be back next week to talk about Chakotay. Thanks for trekking with us this time, and we will see you next time on the Retrek.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Drag on! Make it so.
Fascinating.
I think me and you both tried to put that on the same